body of the girl जिसके मुंह में खून था, शरीर में कोई कपड़ा नहीं था, पैर दोनों राइट एंगल में मिला गया। एक पाँव बेड के इस तरफ, एक पाँव बेड के इस तरफ मिला गया। चश्मे को कूटा गया जिसकी वजह से आंखों से खून निकल गया। ला दबाकर मारा गया।
On the morning of August 9th, 2024, in the city of Kolkata, India, a horrifying news story emerged that shook the entire country. The news concerned a 31-year-old lady doctor who was undergoing training at RG Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata. The murder and rape of this female doctor within the supposedly safe confines of a hospital were both shocking and horrifying. This incident came to light when the post-mortem of the doctor's body was conducted. The report was so disturbing that it sent shockwaves through the community. This was not just a case of murder, it was far more horrific. The post-mortem revealed that the doctor had been strangled with such force that her thyroid cartilage was broken. Before the murder, she had desperately tried to defend herself, as evidenced by numerous marks found on her body. The most chilling revelation was the discovery of wounds on the doctor's private parts, confirming that this was not merely a case of murder, but a brutal killing that followed an act of rape. The body of the doctor, whose mouth had blood in it, was found unclothed. Her legs were positioned at 90-degree angles, with one leg placed on one side and the other on the opposite side. Her glasses had been shattered, causing blood to flow from her eyes. She was ultimately killed by someone pressing down on her legs with tremendous force. It is astounding that such a heinous act could occur within the hospital premises without anyone noticing. What happened that night that could have led to such a gruesome crime? Was there someone else present who committed this cruel act? If so, who was it? This is the story of Momita Devnath. After much effort and dedication, many boys and girls who qualify come to RG Medical College for medical training as junior doctors. One of these students was a young woman who had worked exceptionally hard because her parents dreamed of her becoming a doctor. Her goal was to fulfill her parents' dream and lift them out of poverty. Despite the financial hardships, the daughter completed her MBBS studies and was now a second-year PG student at RG Medical College. Her future was bright, and her parents' long-held dream of seeing her become a doctor was on the verge of realization. However, on the morning of August 9th, their dreams were shattered. The daughter they had spoken to on the night of August 8th was reported dead the next morning. After a peaceful night spent speaking with their daughter, her parents were left in utter shock upon learning of her death the following day. They could never have imagined the horror that awaited them. Trainee doctor Momita Devnath had been working the night shift at RG Medical College. She had been on this shift for several days, starting around 10 p.m. and finishing in the morning. After her shift, Momita would head straight home from the hospital. The hospital was located in the Lal Bazaar area, so on August 8th, 2024, she left home for her shift as usual. Upon arriving at the hospital, Momita attended to her patients, completing her tasks around 2 a.m. At that time, the hospital, which had been bustling with patients and their relatives, began to quiet down as the number of patients decreased. With some free time on her hands, Momita and 4 other junior doctors decided to have dinner in the hospital canteen. It was around 2 a.m. when they finished their meal. After dinner, feeling tired from their duties in the emergency ward, the doctors would often go to the seminar hall of the hospital to rest. This seminar hall, located on the 4th floor, was equipped with chairs for about 25 to 30 people. It was primarily used for functions and events at the hospital. Surprisingly, in such a large and renowned medical college, there was no designated room for the staff to rest. Due to the lack of designated rest areas, the medical staff, working night shifts, often took advantage of the seminar hall on the 4th floor to rest when they were tired. After having dinner, junior Dr. Momita Devnath bid goodnight to her colleagues and went to the seminar hall around 2:30 a.m., intending to rest before finishing her shift. However, after Momita entered the seminar hall, no one saw her again until the next morning. Her colleagues, assuming she had gone home, continued with their duties. As the night passed slowly, the atmosphere in the hospital remained calm and normal. It wasn't until 8:30 a.m. that the situation changed drastically. When a hospital staff member opened the door to the seminar hall and stepped inside, he was horrified to find a mattress on the floor with a girl lying on it. He screamed upon seeing the scene, as the area around her was covered in blood. In a state of shock, the staff member ran out of the seminar hall, yelling for help. The commotion quickly drew other staff members, and soon doctors, junior doctors, and other hospital personnel gathered at the scene. Their screams filled the air as they witnessed the gruesome sight. Momita Devnath, the junior doctor, was lying on the mattress, covered in blood. Although she had some upper clothing, she was completely unclothed below the waist. She was found in a semi-naked state, with hardly any part of her body, from face to feet, free of wounds. Blood was oozing from her eyes and face, and her entire body was covered in blood. The body of junior Dr. Momita Devnath was quickly covered with clothes. Despite the usual protocol of transferring such cases to the hospital mortuary, Dr. Momita was already in the hospital, and the doctors on site realized immediately that she had stopped breathing and was dead. Her body was moved to the mortuary. Her family was notified about the tragic incident. Upon receiving the news, there was chaos at her home and her family soon arrived at the hospital. The assistant superintendent of the medicine department informed them that their daughter had committed suicide. However, her parents were unconvinced by this explanation. They suspected foul play, particularly given that her father had observed blood dripping from her face when he went to see her. Her glasses were also badly broken. When her father gently moved the clothes covering her body, he noticed that she had no clothing below her waist. Despite the severity of her injuries and the state of her body, the assistant superintendent of the chest medicine department at the hospital insisted that junior Dr. Momita Devnath had committed suicide. It seemed implausible that someone in such a condition could have taken their own life. As news of the incident spread quickly among the junior doctors at the hospital, those who saw Momita's body immediately suspected that this was not merely a case of suicide but involved brutal rape and murder. The revelation created a profound sense of grief and anger among the medical staff, particularly since the atrocity occurred within a government hospital. Although the initial shock led to suppressed anger, the preliminary post-mortem report eventually clarified some details of the brutality Momita suffered. According to the post-mortem report, blood was oozing from her eyes and mouth, and from her private parts as well. Her stomach was severely injured, her left leg was broken, her neck was fractured, and her right hand was broken, with her ring finger also damaged. Her lips were injured and bleeding, and there were bite marks on various parts of her body. The report suggested that after these horrific injuries she might have been strangled to death. However, it remained unclear whether the rape occurred before or after her death. The ambiguity about whether the brutality was inflicted while she was still alive or on her lifeless body added to the confusion and distress surrounding the case. The post-mortem reports provided undeniable evidence that someone had forcibly tried to assault Momita. When she resisted, the attacker strangled her, brutally beat her, and then raped her. With these damning proofs in hand, the case was promptly handed over to the police, who began their hunt for the criminal responsible for this heinous act. When the horrific post-mortem report was made public, the anger among the doctors became overwhelming. Within a short time, the doctors at RG Carr Medical College went on strike, halting all medical work. They expressed their frustration, questioning their safety within a government hospital. Protests erupted and pressure mounted on the police. Initially, the Kolkata police tried to downplay the case, but as public outrage grew, they were compelled to take action. The police formed a special team to investigate the matter. The case soon attracted the attention of the chief minister, and political interest intensified. As the investigation began, the police started at the seminar hall where Momita's body was discovered. Due to the lack of CCTV cameras in the seminar hall, they could not determine what had happened there that night. The police then focused on finding out where Momita had been during her shift and which emergency ward she had worked in. They also interviewed her friends who had been with her during the night. The police's first step was to thoroughly investigate the crime scene where the incident had taken place. Fortunately, they discovered some critical pieces of evidence: a few of Momita's nails, blood samples, and a Bluetooth neckband. The investigation could have advanced much quicker if there had been CCTV cameras installed on that floor, but unfortunately there were none. While there were no CCTV cameras inside or around the seminar room itself, there were cameras positioned in the hallways leading to that floor. The police thoroughly reviewed the footage from these cameras, focusing on the time frame between 3 AM and 8 AM to identify how many people accessed the floor during that period. After careful examination, the footage revealed that a total of 6 individuals had entered and exited the floor. Armed with this information, the police summoned these 6 individuals one by one for questioning. Their goal was to determine what each person was doing on the floor at the time and whether they had noticed anything unusual. During these interrogations, the police employed a clever tactic. They turned on the Bluetooth settings on the suspects' phones to see if any of them would automatically connect to the Bluetooth neckband found at the crime scene. As you may know, once a phone is paired with a Bluetooth device, it will automatically reconnect to it in the future if the settings are not changed. This strategy paid off when the Bluetooth neckband connected to the phone of one of the 6 suspects, a man named Sanjay Roy. Sanjay worked under a civil volunteer. These civil volunteers work under police department and are assigned with minor tasks. With this crucial connection established, the police had their prime suspect. With this discovery, the police intensified their interrogation of Sanjay Roy, but he remained uncooperative, refusing to answer any of their questions. His silence was attributed to his heavily intoxicated state at the time. Nevertheless, the police examined Sanjay's phone, where they uncovered numerous messages and a bunch of pornography content that raised further suspicion. Determined to extract a confession, the police escalated their pressure on Sanjay Roy. Eventually, overwhelmed by fear, Sanjay confessed to his heinous crime. He admitted that he had raped Momita Devnath, and after raping her, he killed her too. Following this confession, several police officers were dispatched to Sanjay Roy's residence to gather additional evidence. At his house, they discovered a pair of shoes with visible bloodstains on them. The police collected samples from these stains for analysis. As they continued their search, they found some clothes hanging outside to dry. These clothes matched the ones Sanjay was seen wearing on the night of the crime, as captured by the CCTV cameras. This discovery made it evident that Sanjay had attempted to destroy evidence. However, when Sanjay was brought in for further questioning, he was still under the heavy influence of drugs. This raised the question, was he trying to lessen his punishment by claiming he was intoxicated during the crime? Despite his intoxication, the blood samples found on the shoes were tested and confirmed to match Momita's blood, providing solid evidence against him. Piecing together all the reports and details, the police concluded that Sanjay Roy was highly intoxicated on the night of the crime. He had entered the hospital at 11 p.m, and it was during this time that he committed the brutal acts against Momita. Sanjay often worked the night shift at the hospital, which gave him a thorough understanding of where the surveillance cameras were located, and crucially where they were not. Knowing this, he comfortably made his way to the 4th floor, aware that he could remain unnoticed. His primary concern was avoiding detection in his heavily intoxicated state, as getting caught could have cost him his job. Once he reached the 4th floor, he found a secluded spot and fell asleep. When Sanjay awoke, it was 3 a.m. As he gathered his bearings, his eyes landed on Momita, who was heading to the seminar hall to rest. Seeing her alone, Sanjay's thoughts turned sinister, his intentions darkened, and he started checking the floor for an extended period to ensure that no one else was around. After confirming that nobody was there, he made his move. At 4 a.m., Sanjay entered the seminar hall, and 45 minutes later, he emerged. In those 45 minutes, Momita endured unimaginable suffering at his hands. The pain and terror she must have experienced are beyond comprehension, especially when one considers the hopes and dreams her parents had for her. They had sent their only daughter to medical school with so much hope and sacrifice, only for their worst nightmare to come true. This horrific crime has left a deep wound not just in the hearts of Momita's family, but in everyone who hears her story. And yet, this case is far from over. Sanjay Roy remains in custody, with his detention extended. Justice for Momita is still being sought, and the outcome of this case is awaited by many. As we continue to follow this case, we encourage you to share your thoughts on what punishment this murderer should face. This was the story of Momita Devnath. Here are 2 more videos that will have you on the edge of your seat, packed with even more heart-pounding stories. If you're addicted to suspense and live for intrigue, these are unmissable. Get ready to be hooked. These will leave you wanting more. Stay sharp and safe.